Welcome to Rainbow Soul Vodcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Hello and welcome to Rainbow Soul Soulstrology Forecast. I'm glad you're here. This is Hollis Taylor, and I am one of your astrologers here today. I offer astrology readings for just about any reason, whether you want to look into your future or you want to understand yourself deeper, make a good career choice, or if you want to understand why someone committed suicide. And all of those things are really helpful. I call that reading for like people that if you have a loved one that's committed suicide or something like that, or you want to understand their death more in depth, then you can get a mediumship with astrology reading. So I kind of like look at death in the chart. Yeah, no, we cannot predict our death, by the way. So, so I'm Hollis, and you can find out more about me at my website, www.divineandrogen.com. It's in the description.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bright Hawk. Happy to be with you. Musician, storyteller, author of The Dancing Hippo, a book you can find out more about at brighthawkproductions.com. And
I'm Lacrosse. Yeah. You always grab it. It's like, I go grab it, and I'm like, nope, you're ahead of me. I'm the, creator of the Fool's Journey Color Journal. And it comes in a series. Still working on the last one of the series. You can find
Great
me.
way to learn astrology.
Yeah. So you basically color and read the keywords and just meditate on it and see what it brings to you. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I was trying to say Facebook and TikTok at the same time. And TikTok. So
I thought maybe you were just like seeing Facebook's real face, Facebot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that would be fun for you to do at some point, Lacrosse. Is that I just said that those books were good for astrology. I meant tarot, but you could, when you're done them, do a similar format with like the planets, and the houses and the zodiac.
Yeah.
That would be a good way to like learn your basics in astrology, because that's where you start. Where you start.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know I got lined up after that. I'll be working on animal wisdom, and it's basically learning about the animals, and not just the indigenous astrology, but also like all animals as they come to you, and how to look for the guidance that they bring you, because everybody sees the animal differently. So it's going to be a color journal very similar to this, but it's more hands-on. I'm not giving keywords. You got to go find it out. So.
Had you had any insight about moose?
Moose? Nope, I haven't. Well, not really, because I haven't. I did with the elk, which is kind of similar, but not. But with the elk, I know it's a kind of nocturnal. It was out at night, and they were pretty skittish, and that was surprising to me. And I thought, how funny that is that they're so large, but yet so fearful and very skittish. So
yeah, moose are not skittish. They're kind of like, they're like Bright Hawk says, they're like elephants in Africa. Yeah. They just kind of walk through your yard like they own the place, and they just kind of like,
yeah.
You should look into them.
I should.
I've had a lot of moose energy. I'd love to hear what you find out about them. But the moose came through my yard the day I went to go see the doctor. So I thought that was what I did know, is that they're a good omen.
Yeah.
They're a blessing. And when I see an animal, when an animal comes in my world, that's the first thing I do, is like, oh, what's that? What's the spiritual meaning of whatever?
Right.
And yeah, so that's exciting.
And
Cool.
it's cool that when you start seeing them, you start really seeing them, and they come more often, and they come more with more lessons and more gifts and more, spirituality for you to just grasp. Because it's like when I first started really connecting to my to the raven and the crow, it's like at first I didn't really pay attention to them, but then when you start paying attention, it's like crows everywhere. I'm like, oh my goodness, is crow here, crow there, and they're always yelling at me, and I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to learn? So
Yeah, ravens and crows, yeah. And I thought it was I've never really connected with moose until I lived out here in Colorado, and that's the first time I ever seen a moose.
And
So
hummingbirds, lots of
yeah,
hummingbirds.
hummingbirds. And so I think what happens is, like, when we show gratitude for the animal's energy, and by honoring it, by saying, oh, I got your message of change, or messenger of spirit, or a good omen. And when we get those messages, and I think when we really take them in and have faith in them, I think that's like a way of saying thank you, and it brings more of it towards us.
yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So yeah. So friends, this week's astrology. Oh yeah, we have to do a meditation. Okay, yeah.
Like, we're jumping right in. No, wait, slow down.
I think Mars is like opposite my, or near my Uranus or something. Yeah, Mars is headed towards my ascendant. So, I want you to take a moment to put your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath. And take this moment to just allow the stress to roll off of your body, to just kind of slide right off of you. Allow the music to carry it away. And you can imagine yourself outside, under the stars, staring up at the sky, the beautiful night sky, with the stars shining bright. And there's one constellation that is standing out. And it kind of looks like a bull with just two horns coming out at the top. And as it zooms in, you realize this is the symbol for Taurus. And Taurus is loyal, and it sticks to things. When it's ready to do something, it does it. It pushes forward, it's sensual. It loves the luxuries of food and life. Taurus loves to feel life. fully and completely, to celebrate the joys of feeling. And as Taurus holds bright, right out of the center comes the symbols for Uranus and Jupiter, showing you their presence together in the sign of Taurus. And Uranus helps you feel like this is the way life goes. This is life's plan for you. This was planned all along before you made your own plans. Even if it seems strange or off balance, it's actually getting you back on track. And with Jupiter at its side, it brings spiritual understanding and depth, luck, and fortune. That feels much closer to your soul purpose. These two planets together in Taurus together help you feel like you are living the life you are to lead. Like you are living life fully. Like life is something to be felt, tasted, heard, and experienced. All of the senses wrapped into your experience. And we can feel grateful for the steady, committed ways of these planets in the sign of Taurus as they push us forward to our fated future. And as the two planets sink back into the center of Taurus, Taurus leaves you with the sweetness of life and the sweetness of living life full, and reminds you that life is worth living. As she pulls back, as Taurus pulls back into the sky, leaving you to more deeply understand the messages of the stars. And bringing you back into your body, back into your feet on the floor, your bottom on the seat, your back in the chair, and back into your body in the here and now. And you can open your eyes and come back to the podcast Rainbow Soul. you, Bright Hawk. That's beautiful. Yeah, so this week is really exciting.
September 4th to the 10th,
Yep.
for those keeping track.
Oh, numbers. It's like letters. Do they have to go in order?
Well, it is a forecast so that people can plan their lives, I hope. So,
Oh my gosh, Alice, you're so crazy. Okay, so September 4th through the 10th. I've got here. Let me just try to. Okay, there we go. Hey, I typed it right. Okay, and what I noticed. So first of all, last week I did not include that Uranus went retrograde. Okay. And so if you felt something along, I was so focused on Mercury retrograde that I didn't focus on Uranus retrograde. So there you go. Uranus went retrograde. And so what does that mean, really? Uranus isn't a personal planet. Like Mercury is a personal planet, so that's a planet that like directly affects our like immediate life. It affects sometimes how we talk, or shit could break, anyway. So that's Mercury. Mercury, Mars, and Venus tend to be personal planets, okay? And then there's planets that are a little bit further out that are more. I think Jupiter's considered a personal planet too, isn't it? For some reason, I don't know why. But there's certain planets that are a little further out, and Uranus is definitely one of them, along with Pluto and Neptune. And these planets that are sort of further out, they tend to affect the collective more, like our culture, rather than you individually. Although if you're like me and you have a strong Uranus placement or a strong Neptune or Pluto placement, then it might, okay? Or if you are one of the signs that is ruled by that planet, okay, like Saturn, okay? So Uranus rules Aquarius, so that means Aquarians, anyone with a strong, so my natal Uranus is on my ascendant, so that tends to like put it in and it's aspected many times by other planets. There's a calculator on astro.com which will tell you what planet runs your natal chart, and I would highly suggest that you do it. I think if you put ruling planet calculator, you'll get it. There's one at astro.com that I found that was the best one. Okay. And so if you just Google that, you'll find Astro. It'll be further down in the list on Google, but it'll be like the 4th or 5th one down. Go to astro.com and fill in the information with your birthday and such, and it will tell you what your planet is. And for me, it's actually Uranus.
Yeah.
It's
often what's closest to your ascendant. It looks at a variety of things, doesn't it? So,
Yep.
we talk about, our sun, what sign our sun is in. Well, what's the ruler of that sign? Okay, so if your sun is in Leo, that's easy, right? The sun is at home in Leo. So these are things that we look at further to help us understand what's going to have the most influence. Because look at the chart every week, it changes, right? And it can look like a lot of gobbledygook. But if you know what is influencing you the most, for some people it's going to be their sun, for some people it's going to be their rising. It's somebody else, the moon might rule their chart. If you have a strong Cancer placement, the moon might be the chart ruler. So it's a really, really good thing to understand, because it's definitely one of those highly influential. Don't you want to know who's influencing your chart? Who's influencing you? who's pushing your buttons
And frankly, if you're
or
listening,
giving you a great ride.
right, and if you're listening to forecasts like this, you're going to want to pay attention when that planet does something, okay?
And this is why getting a reading with Hollis, I'm just going to say, can be super, super duper helpful.
It can be helpful.
That's
to
how
know.
we met in a large way. Was Hollis did my chart as a friend, oh, I'm learning how to do this. Would you be interested in this for your birthday? And I was like, you're gonna have the goods on me. But we barely knew each other. We lived in different parts of the country, and I learned so much by getting that chart reading, and
So did
stopped fighting and stopped fighting with certain parts of me that I thought I needed to change, and realized, oh, this is who I am. This is like core to who I am. Stop trying to change that. How about instead we learn about temperament and balance and all the other things in your chart that help you know how to groove, right? So it's very valuable. Knowing who is influencing you the most in your chart is such valuable information.
Yeah, I mostly just learned that we were twin flames, or we're really well matched. I was like, whoa, this is the most well matched person I've ever. Well, this is weird. Yeah, so I knew that spirit was pointing me at you for some reason, much deeper than what appeared. Yeah, but I knew that by looking at the astrology chart.
Right.
So, because our astrology is well matched. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So this season, let's get back to the September 4th through the 10th. This season right now, we are very much in a planet. Many planets are retrograde. Venus is just now going back to direct act, to moving direct.
Yeah, she's just stationed.
Right. She's just stationed. So she's not even really moving, but her pivot point is happening this week as well. And now you have Uranus joining the crowd of planets going retrograde, which includes, I'm going to go from backwards. Pluto is in retrograde. Saturn is in retrograde. Jupiter will be going into retrograde. Mercury, we've talked a lot about last week, was in retrograde. Venus has been in retrograde for weeks and weeks and weeks. 7 weeks or something? So finally pivoting and going to start moving forward again. So 'tis the season.
Yeah.
'Tis the season.
And the thing about retrogrades that I just want to address is that, first of all, a lot of people are like, it's retrograde. Oh my gosh. You would not believe how many people in the last week that I've seen post online or in a chat or something like that, and they'll be like, oh, my life is ending since Mercury retrograde. And I'm like, first of all, your love life is not ending because of Mercury retrograde. That's actually Venus. And Venus has been in retrograde for months, and she finally got you to make a choice. Well, because that probably wasn't meant to be. So just going to say that just because things come to an end, just because things change, just because, you finally have to fix that thing in your car, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And I think that Uranus going retrograde is the best example of this. And I thought it really fascinating to listen to a lecture by Christopher Renstrom, who is a gay astrologer. I think he writes for San Francisco newspaper. Okay, but you can also check him out on Astro Hub. And Christopher Renstrom is particularly good storyteller, but he's really good at helping you grasp the concept of some things. He's an excellent teacher, one of the best teachers I've ever met in astrology. And one of the things about Uranus is that Uranus, depending on your perspective, now, of course, I've told you about the perspective of Uranus being your weird spot, being your queer spot. That's why Uranus is kind of my ruling planet, where it's on my ascendant and everything I do is queer, right? Like, Hollis, you are like shitting rainbows, okay? And It's so true, but it's great. And before, when I tried to pretend to be straight, it was so uncomfortable to do that. Okay, it was so uncomfortable, it was miserable, and I couldn't figure out why I was so miserable. And part of the reason is because I was off track. And so when Uranus came into, and my Saturn returns and stuff like that happened, it said, you got to get on track. You got to get on track. And as hard as that was, it also was a point to put me on track, right? And to put me in a place where I was more myself. And now I can walk around like a proud queer and not worry about, screw them if they don't like it. I don't care. If you don't like it, go away. It doesn't matter to me, okay? And poof, like lacrosse says, right? Just poof them. And so that's what Uranus does, actually. When I was listening to Christopher, other than that, it puts you on the track. It sometimes can feel like a smack in the face or a lightning bolt or a sudden change, a sudden making your car go the other way. But in actuality, it's actually putting you back on track if you got screwed up. So since it's in Taurus and it's going retrograde this last week, when Mercury went retrograde as well, Uranus went retrograde just before it, and then or they went pretty much together. And so when that happened, it started to make you think about, is this really like what I want to be doing? Am I on track? Am I like, what's wrong with my, like, and so some things could happen that don't feel great, but it's mostly just to help you get back on track. Okay. So they may be uncomfortable, especially in Taurus. It's going to push you towards living your life full, just like in the meditation, living your life so full, because Taurus is all about experiencing every last flavonoid of life. Okay. Tauruses love food. Ask any Taurus, they'll be like, I love food. Aren't you married to a Taurus, lacrosse?
She
They just love
loves it.
food.
Loves it.
And hey, I love food too, so I totally get it. And but they really savor food. These are food critics, they're chefs sometimes, and they just love food, and they like to savor every moment of it. But they also love life. They love celebration. They love to make the best of life. They like to have a good time. That's a Taurus. A Taurus is going to make the best of every moment of life. And so Uranus is here to make sure that that's what you're doing. So make sure you're celebrating your life to its fullest. So if something suddenly happens, or maybe not suddenly, maybe if something happens. A lot of people listening to this know that I'm going to have surgery. And so, like, is my surgery, the surgery that I have to go do, is meant to help me live a fuller life, right? Uranus retrograde, okay? And so some other people are having some surgeries also to make their life a little better, to be lived that way, okay? Make your life better, okay? And since it's up against Jupiter, and they're both kind of moving in the same direction, Jupiter tends to be bigger and expansive, and it's right up against, almost conjunct, pretty much conjunct with Uranus at 8 degrees. It's an 8-degree orb, but it's there. And so
conjunct the moon.
Right. And then the moon on this particular day, in the beginning of the week, on September the 4th, moon starts out there. And it's interesting because they're all trining Mercury in retrograde. So that's our messages of spirit, and they're coming backwards. Yes, so Uranus is retrograde, and that's what you need to know, okay? So if you start reflecting in on your life and wondering, how can I make this better? Listen to that, okay? That's really what needs to be happening. And Sun and Mercury are conjunct, and they're trining Jupiter and the moon. So Brighthawk probably noticed that the moon and Jupiter are pretty much the same degree at 11 a.m. on this day.
Yeah. And the moon is obviously trining Mercury, and the ruler of Taurus. We've been talking about Taurus. We started our program with thinking about Taurus. Taurus is really easy to spot in the sky if you can spot the Pleiades. So if you can find the Pleiades, then you just move a little bit to the right and you'll see the pointer stars of the bull. And at least that's how I learned how to find Taurus in a very easy way in the sky. So the ruler of Taurus is Mercury, and Mercury, of course.
Venus.
That's what I meant. Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus has now gone direct in Leo, right? So the moon is squaring Venus. It's in a trine to Mercury, but it's in a square to Venus. And that's a little bit of a, contentious conversation, shall we say?
Well,
so yeah, the moon is also waning because we're moving towards a new moon. And so it's a waning gibbous moon at this time. And at the degrees that it's in this, it's a void moon as well. So it's not quite as strong. But shoot, it's right there next to Jupiter, so it's going to be amplified.
Yeah, I was wondering about this because they're going to be, the Sun and Mercury are conjunct, which is an amplification for Mercury. Mercury is a messenger of spirit. So that's about communications and messages. And so with the Sun amplifying it, and they're in a trine to Jupiter and the moon over there. So I just feel like that's an emotional communication explosion, but in a good way. So it's a trine. So that means whatever is supposed to come out will come out on this day. If there's some messages that need to be delivered or something you need to say, today's the day to do it, okay? And the other thing that's really big, which has been going on for a while, and I just want to remind you that it's happening, is the T-square with Athena and Neptune in opposition, and it's pointing up at Vesta. So that's that T-square, which is about your strategy and your spirituality. So you might want to be checking in on your strategy, especially like if you're working on your psychic abilities or deepening your spiritual faith or your spiritual dedication or anything like that. And I want to mention that the part of fortune starts up in the week in Cancer. So where is Cancer in your chart? Part of fortune is there. Cancer is very much about tradition and about doing things the way they've been passed down. So if there's something that you've learned or a skill that you've learned that's been passed down, that's going to be the part of fortune. The part of fortune is a point in the sky that helps us more deeply understand you being your highest self or your most fortunate self. Okay, so this will mean presenting your skills and your gifts. Okay. Now, I'm sure you noticed, Bright Hawk, that there was the moon becomes part of a grand trine.
In Earth? Yeah, exactly.
In Earth on this day. Yeah, on the 5th, I think this is.
Yes, exactly. So absolutely a lot of grand trine energy in this week, and a number of yods as well. And basically what you have with the moon is now, the moon is still in Gemini, and it's going to move into, from Gemini, well, it's not quite
here
there
it's
yet.
in Taurus, but I'm sure yeah.
I'm sorry, from Taurus into Gemini? It hasn't happened there yet.
It hasn't quite happened. This is 11 a.m. on the 5th.
Right, and I think I was starting to look at it in the afternoon. So it's still in Taurus for sure, and it's trining Pluto. It's having a square with Lilith, with Saturn. It's still in a trine to Mars. Now it's moved into a trine with Mars. Before it was in a trine to Mercury. And that grand trine in Earth is, obviously you have the moon still conjunct Uranus, plus you have Pallas Athena in Virgo and Pluto in Capricorn. So powerful Earth energy.
Yeah, I would say, with that grand trine in Earth, with the moon and Uranus involved, because the moon is conjunct Uranus here. And this is like this is kind of like 11 o'clock mountain time. So Eastern time, that's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And so this is Moon and Uranus are conjunct on this day on the 5th. It will kind of perfect at that point with its trine to Pluto. So that's change. But this is going to be physical change and your strategy, especially since it also is part of a kite. That grand trine is also part of a kite with the part of fortune sort of pulling it upwards, which is excellent because this means that you're going to be headed to where you need to be going, especially if it's something that has been handed down to you, some sort of skill or something like that with the part of fortune in Cancer. Okay. And the part of fortune is also sextiling Jupiter, which I think is going to make it a little bit bigger in the sky with this grand trine and this kite. And that's really the big theme of the rest of the week.
Yeah.
This is like the big thing that's going to happen. And it's a good thing. This is a grand trine on Earth. This is manifestation of something you've been working on. This is like, I think I'm physically going to do this now. This is finally making things happen and pushing forward with those physical things, especially physical or financial things that you can hold, touch, feel, and see. Okay. Now the part of fortune will continue to move, but that grand trine will stay. So and it will move, and as it moves, it will sextile Mars and the moon, and it will also conjunct Venus and Juno. So it's going to pass over Venus and Juno, sort of bringing you blessings of, sometimes relationships are meant to be broken up. So if you've recently had an ending to a relationship, this would be the day that you go, well, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Okay. And this would be the day that you go, I'm very fortunate to have this relationship. This is good for me, okay? Or whatever it is, realizing that your commitments and your relationships, because Venus and Juno have been conjunct since Venus stationed to go direct. She's still in her shadow. So that means anything that happened to her, the retrograde, is still being dealt with at this point. It's like tying up loose ends during the shadow period. Like if anything didn't quite get finished up, you didn't quite break it off, you didn't get your stuff, anything like that, or if there's an argument that didn't quite end, those kinds of things are going to be handled during the Venus shadow period.
Plus, it's the last quarter of the moon, so that's the perfect time to wrap up whatever it is that you set your intentions for. Clean up the business. I always say the laundry's not done till it's put away. You could fold it and it's still stacked and out, and until it's put away, it's not really done, right? So that's kind of do the last step. It's the last quarter phase of the moon. It's the last pieces of Venus in the shadow phases of where she started, retracing those last few degrees. So yeah, good time to wrap things up.
And while part of fortune is sextiling Mars, which is about actions, so you're going to really be stepping into who you really are and what the fortunate side of you looks like, whatever that looks like on this day. And it's going to be real easy to take action on this day and to even feel good about it. Okay, so it's excellent action. And while Vesta, which is your spiritual dedication, is in conjunct Pluto, there could be some final pieces that fall into place around your spiritual dedication and the changes that you've been making around that. Okay, especially anything that you're dedicated to, you're learning, or if you're a medium or a psychic or anything like that. This would be a good time to check in with your ancestors and to make sure that you're connecting in a good way. Okay, and Vesta, which is again your spiritual dedication, things that you're dedicated to, that has a lot. I think we're on the 6th, seventh,
I think it's the seventh. But
yeah.
I can't tell because the thing's in the way. So.
Conjunct Vesta in the moon. Yep. Look, Vesta and the moon are conjunct.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So Vesta is trining the South Node and Ceres, along with the moon conjunct it. So that's intuition. That's going to be any kind of intuitive work you're doing, any kind of spiritual work, or moon magic, or anything like that that you're doing that involves the moon, or anything that involves spirituality, or intuition, or even emotions. Okay. And it's trining the South Node where you came from, and your self-nurturing. Okay. And those two have been conjunct for quite some time now and squaring Pluto. So you may have been changing where you came from, or the view of where you came from, and how you take care of yourself. Maybe you've just been trying to put yourself first more, or trying to spend more time taking care of yourself, or whatever it is. But Vesta is going to trine them, meaning that this will help your intuition get on point. So if you're a psychic or anything like that, this will be a good day, especially if you're more of an intuitive psychic rather than a Neptunian psychic, which are two kind of different things. And the part of fortune is trine Chiron. So the part of fortune up at the top of the sky is in Leo. So wherever your Leo is in your chart, the part of fortune, that's where you need to be paying attention, into that house of your life. It is trining Chiron, so that means that there could be some major healing, some major behavior changes that maybe had something to do with some wounding as a child, or something that you brought forth that maybe now you're finding a different way to do things.
Yeah, and with that conjunction with Vesta and the moon, which, by the way, the moon is still in Gemini there. It's headed towards Cancer, which we know when the moon is in Cancer, it comes home. When the moon is in Gemini, the Gemini moon is a little bit more versatile. It's witty, it's charming, it's lively, it's amusing. Gemini is on the other side of things, can be a little on the disorganized, inconsistent, two-faced, right? Gemini, two faces, the twins. So that sometimes there can be cunning and manipulation, superficiality on that challenge side of it. But Gemini moon, when the moon is in Gemini, and of course Gemini is ruled by Mercury, at this point it's square Mercury. So the moon is having a conversation with Mercury, the ruler of the sign it is in a square. So it's asking something, it's needing a decision about something, but it's also in a T-square with Pallas Athena in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. So one is strategic and one is about your dreams. So and they're in
Can also
opposite.
be about your spirituality, yeah.
Yeah, and they're in opposition. So what is being asked and what are you needing to do relative to your dreams? Because with the moon there in Gemini, it's asking you to think. Gemini's that air sign, and it's a thinking, networking. Who are we connected to that could help us? That kind of thing. So the interesting thing is that it's also the day that's there's a yod with the moon in Vesta, and then you go across to Leo and Lilith in Leo, and it points across to Pluto in Capricorn. So again, that Pluto energy, which is all about transformation, but Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn, so it's asking you, so we're reflective about it. And then when you throw in the North Node, you end up with the cradle. So some positives and some challenges. You have square with the Neptune, square with Pallas Athena, but you also have trine with Ceres, trine with Saturn, sextile with Lilith, which are all flow energy. So Yeah, and some of that is fated energy. So it's definitely, if you have instincts about certain things, listen to your instincts.
Especially with that moon conjunct Vesta.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's your intuition.
don't go against your I knew I should have. If you're saying I knew I should have, do what you know you should do, right?
Yeah. Definitely do what you think you're supposed to do. Definitely follow your intuition. And so psychic readers that are more intuitive and less, so you can tell if your chart will tell us the best, but if you're a psychic, there's some people that are a little bit more intuitive, and then there's some people that are a little bit more Neptunian, and those are the people that sometimes need to meditate and stuff like that just before a reading when they need to prep themselves. Those are the people that are more Neptunian based, intuitive. It's best if you just say whatever is right off the bat, which isn't an easy thing. Neither one is easier or better. Um, but they don't usually, if they do too much prep, they'll overthink it. Okay. And so that's where intuitive people, okay, intuitive psychics. Yeah. Okay. So, your Athena is trining Pluto on this day exact. You can see it's a very strong blue line from Pluto down at the bottom there in the third house. And it's a strong blue line going up to Athena. So that has a lot to do with your strategy for change, practical strategy, because Pallas Athena is in Virgo. So that's practicality. That's like, if I did this, it would be more efficient, especially anything that has to do with efficiency or mastery. That's Virgo. And it's trining Pluto. So, it's asking you to change, especially in Capricorn, which is Earth. So if it has anything to do with manifesting money, physical things you can touch and feel, those are Earth signs, okay? And the part of fortune is sextiling Vesta, the South Node, and Ceres all together, because so South Node and Ceres are conjunct, and then Vesta is over on the other side of it, but the part of fortune is right in the middle, and it's kind of the top of a kite, actually, again. So once again, the part of fortune is pointing to the middle, and pulling the kite forward, pulling you towards what you are supposed to be manifesting. So it's a really good week to really pay attention to who you really are. And if you feel like your authenticity is starting to come forward, now's the time. So, yeah, this is a really important week about that. This is really going to pull you forward.
The 8th. And now the moon has come home. It's in Cancer and it's home in Cancer, right? So a Cancer home moon is imaginative, it's sympathetic, it's protective, of course, tenacious, loyal, very family-oriented crabs are, those Cancerian crab. Sometimes they can be possessive, sometimes Cancer moon can be moody, sometimes critical, sometimes self-pitying, and a little bit of a nag. But really, the moon is at home in Cancer, which means it's imaginative, it's reflective, it's deep, it's and it's in its power. And so the moon is squaring Mars, but it's in a sextile to Mercury, and it's still trining Saturn, which is lovely. A lovely trine to Saturn. So a lot of what you just said just underscored with one more aspect.
Right. And the thing is that, for Mercury retrograde, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo and Gemini. For Mercury retrograde, Mercury's in Virgo. This is like the blessing of retrogrades. Of all the best retrogrades you could have, this is it. This is the time when if things go awry or wrong, just know that that Spirit's just trying to put you on the right path, okay? And if you embrace it instead of fighting against it, then you'll do better. You'll do better. Life will be better, and it will be easier for you. But the part of fortune is really pulling forward. This is the second time it will form a kite, this time in Virgo. Last time it was over in Gemini. And so it's pulling you forward. It's pulling all of those great things forward. So this is the 8th, right?
9th, isn't it?
Oh, I thought it was the 8th. So this day, oh, it is the 9th. Okay, great. So on the 9th, glad you're keeping track, Bright Hawk. Geez, numbers, they go in order, Hollis. Okay, the 9th, the 9th is, that's funny. It's pretty much the same as it was the day before. So good things are happening. Good things are pulling you forward. It's actually really a good week. This week and the following week are actually really great weeks. The thing that I noticed is that on this day, Moon moves over Kronos, and so that could bring your emotions high.
What is Cronus about?
Kronos is just another point in the sky. So Kronos is a point in the sky or a planet in the sky that is been usually used by Uranian astrologers, and essentially Kronos, which is just a different type of astrology. Oh my gosh, you could go on for days about all the different astrology in the world. I think it all leads you to the same place, okay? But I'm enjoying learning more about Kronos and seeing how Kronos and Zeus affect us. And I know Kronos represents high things. Like Kronos was involved on the first day of flight in the world. The first day someone flew like the airplane and all that, the Wright brothers.
Okay.
Okay. Kronos was in a high placement. Okay.
Oh.
And so and it was in, I think, the 9th house of one of the Wright brothers, and which is higher thinking. Okay. So Kronos pretty much has to do with anything high, not just higher thinking, but like high, like up in the air, high.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess it could probably also do if you happen to smoke weed or something, maybe you're high, I don't know. But Kronos also has a lot to do with the moon. It's telling me your intuition is high, your emotions are high.
Oh.
Okay. So could be a high emotional day. And since it's also squaring Chiron, I would be paying attention to if you have high emotions on that day, I would be looking at my childhood. I would be just like looking back at my childhood and going, okay. Just be aware of that, okay?
Yeah, it's in a sextile. The moon is in a sextile, so therefore Moon and Kronos. In a sextile to Uranus, to Jupiter, a trine to Neptune. Now there's a T-square where it's opposite Pluto, but when you combine all of those things, it equals a cradle. So again, the universe holding you and helping you look at your transformation and see what it is that you need to do and do it.
I think some people might have, depending on how much you're on your path, some people will have a tougher time than others. Some people will be like, woo, right? Okay. And some people will be like, oh shit. Okay. But if you're one of the people that's going, shit, just recognize that that's just something you need to change. That's all. Just change it. And if you don't resist change, it's much easier to get through. It goes better. Okay.
I should say.
Yeah, right. So the thing is that this grand trine will kind of light up again on the 10th. So because,
Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday, because the part of fortune will sort of enter it for just a moment on Sunday. So the part of fortune will sort of join that grand trine for just a moment to say hello, and that's the trine with Uranus, Pluto, and yeah, it will, and Pallas Athena. So part of fortune is conjunct Pallas Athena. So this is your strategy, okay? This is your practical strategies, especially in Earth, that are manifesting financial things or things that you can hold, see, or feel.
That's right.
Okay.
Good.
And
So the moon is in
yeah, go
Leo.
ahead.
The moon is moved into Leo. You can see it's 0 degrees Leo right there. And of course, the sun rules Leo. So Leo is, the moon is saying hello to the sun in Virgo. And it is in a sextile to Pallas Athena. So again, that same conversation about strategy. It's in a T-square because it's opposite Pluto. We've talked about opposite Pluto, and the T-square goes to Ceres. Ceres is in a square to the moon. So it's also in a trine to Neptune. So that's your psychic intuition should be good with Neptune in a trine, and the moon in Leo is affectionate. Think of the affectionate lion, the affectionate instinct for leadership, the exuberance and creativity that Leos carry. They're broad-minded, they're colorful, they like to be the center of attention, fun-loving. They can be self-indulgent, they can be self-centered, they can be conceited. All of those things come with Leo. Sometimes overbearing and a bully, but really the moon is affectionate and it's instinctual. So moon in Leo is great for psychic readings and instinct.
Well, it will depend on what kind of psychic you are, but yeah.
Right.
And
Sorry,
and
that's true.
the moon in Leo, what I would be careful of is my arrogance or belief that you're better than someone else or anything like that. Be careful of that. It's a good way to get your psychic ability kicked in the butt. Neptune on that day, it is opposite of the part of fortune. So I'm just gonna say that what that means is that you could have some illusions sort of pulled apart or whatever because you're finally realizing where you're supposed to be. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing this strategy. This is going really well. And it's going to bust a belief system that you had before, probably. Okay. So it's just going to change a belief system. You could be like, I don't know why I thought it would be the other way. That wasn't very good thinking. Let me stop thinking like that. Okay. So I'm going to shuffle the cards. And just remember, my friends, that that this week is actually really good. There's a lot of trines, there's a lot of kites. Just try to stay in tune with your most authentic self and recognize that anything that does happen that's uncomfortable is just trying to get everybody on path, okay? Everyone's got to get on path.
Anything you want to add, Lacrosse, about the animals in this time of the year?
Well, the bear, I found it funny that we were talking about the indulgence of Taurus, and bears are notorious for their indulgence. They like to eat, they can actually eat up to 100 pounds a day. But the whole point is it isn't always just self-indulgence. They're doing it to prepare. It's that preparation and getting themselves and building their den and getting things ready for that time of solitude. So I guess, the indulgence is good sometimes, but remember what you're doing it for. You're preparing, this tastes good, this morsel is really good, but start preparing. It's more than just the physical act of doing it, because why do tourists like to do it? Think about it. It's not just, oh, I'm a foodie, so it is them taking that moment and eating the food and savoring the food, things like that. So I think it's just taking whatever comes at this season, start savoring it and saving it because you're going to need it for later.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So
Be grateful for the harvest, whatever your harvest is.
Yeah. When everybody was farmers a couple hundred years ago, we probably did a lot of putting food back during this time of year.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So I'm going to pull 3 cards for you for the Pride deck. This is the Love is Love deck. And it is a deck that is all LGBTQ. So each card is done by a different LGBTQ artist. And the first card that I have here is the Hanged Man, which is pretty much about making making a choice and being kind of forced to make that choice. It's got to go one way or the other way. You're going to do this or not do this. You're going to do this or that. You have to do this or you have to do that, okay? And that's pretty much what this is about. Yes, this person is half man, half woman, in case you were wondering. If you're looking at the image, and the person is hanging upside down from a tree with an apple and an egg, okay? And it's not that one is better than the other. It's more about making a choice. And this is a reminder of the choice that you've made, and how maybe that might be maybe bringing you a little bit of anxiety, okay? But also how you're holding each piece. And this is about dealing with your mental health. This is a 9 of Cups, and this is pretty much about holding the cup in your hand and recognizing each part of our mental health, sort of using nurturance on ourselves, nurturing the parts of us and the cycles of us. If you take a look at those cups, cups are about emotion. And if you look closer, it won't, maybe it'll zoom in on one of those. Those on those cups is the moon, and the moon is at different cycles. The moon is very connected to water, of course. And so this is about the new moon, right? So what can you manifest? What can you do with that mental health piece and change it? How can you change it for the better? How can you bring it forth and do something different with it? And this is asking to tap into your intuition and figuring out what you can do with those emotions to change it a little bit, especially anything that's making you anxious or sending your mental health off track, okay? And now going into the future, this is very much about don't cry over spilled milk, literally. This is about, relaxing and making the best of things, even spilled milk, and enjoying things and enjoying the taste of things, like Taurus does, like the bear does. And this is very much about celebrating what you do have, what connections, what relationship you are in, what people do love you, and how comfortable that is. Sometimes when we get into long-term relationships, we might take things for granted, or we might think, oh, I wish it was the way it was in the beginning. But do you really? Because now it's comfortable enough, you could even fart and your partner won't think you're so strange, or right? Okay, there's a certain level of comfort that comes when you're in a long-term relationship that you wouldn't have otherwise. And that's really what this card is a reminder of. So if you are in a long-term relationship, maybe you give thanks for that, or anyone else that might be close enough to you that's been around you for a long time, that you can say, well, I'm glad that I'm comfortable with them. Yeah, it may not be the way it was when we first met, but hell, we're at least comfortable with each other and we can be ourselves. And that's a really special gift. Because a lot of times people change the way they act when they first meet people. Okay, so this is a reminder that you made a choice, and it's not that one was better than the other, but you had to make a choice and you did. And those choices are perfectly okay. They were blessed. It was the way it was. That's what was supposed to happen. You made the choice. Now try to rectify it in your mental health by allowing the cycles, using the moon cycles, using your intuition to help deal with that, those emotional struggles, and just deal with it one at a time. Okay, friend? And then in the future, remember to count your blessings, count what is good, especially in long-term relationships. Count what is good, count what counts for you, and notice, there might be a little of this or that that's not so perfect, but there are plenty of things that are really good. And so being grateful for having the extra glasses of milk and cookies is a blessing, or having a comfortable relationship with someone you can be yourself, or whatever it is that you should be grateful for, okay? And that's what this is all about. So, my friends, we got a big week in front of us, but it's big in a good way. I mean, it's not small, it's not quiet, but it's big. It's like just good things happening. So if you've been waiting for something or pushing for something or trying to get something to happen, this is the week.
Yay!
And if not this week, it'll be the next week. Yeah. So
Well, and it's your birthday week. Happy birthday, Hollis.
that's right. It will be my birthday on September the 8th.
Well, so
Yeah.
you're gonna have much celebration to do there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So at least I'll have a good time for my celebration. I think I'm gonna order a rainbow cake.
Nice. Nice. And indulge. And
That's right.
savor.
Savor
I'm
this life.
definitely gonna engage my Taurus energy.
Yeah, there you go.
And and enjoy that. So it'll be fun.
Well, we wish you all the very best. Thanks so much for giving any thumbs up or sharing, posting, commenting. We love hearing from you, and have a great week.
Yeah, have an amazing week,
Yeah.
friends. Like, share, and all that good stuff.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoyed this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.